What's up, guys? It's Catherine, and this is part 2 of my week of encaustic videos. Be sure to check out the supply list. There's a link in the description for your viewing convenience. So, encaustic wax is basically wax for the creative use. It's either hot or cold, never wet or dry. I always think of like cornstarch and water, like when they mix. If you know what I'm talking about, please tell me you know what I'm talking about. That combination always comes to mind when I'm trying to like wrap my head around the physical properties of encaustic wax. You can make your own encaustic wax, and to do so, you just mix refined beeswax, damar resin, and oil paint, all of which can be found at your I don't know about local art store, but definitely like Blick has it. Blick has all those things. You can add textures to it by incorporating like gravel or tree bark or seashells or different kinds of things like that. Um, yeah, it's a preservative. Beeswax is a preservative, so it's the history of encaustic is actually dates back to like the original Roman and Egyptian wax paintings. Like they would paint portraits in the wrappings of mummies, so like on linen or like a flexible board. But nowadays I just use it for like creating texture and like a lot of depth within uh like a field of color, and it's really cool because it has like this atmospheric quality, and it's really hard to explain what that is until you're actually looking at it because it's opaque. It's transparent layers on top of opaque paint. And that's actually a pro tip for you. So like if you're ever going to try this, like do all of your opaque colors first and then add your transparent layers on top. I totally forgot that when I was doing this, but whatever. I now remember that, so like when I'm doing more of these, I can go back and do my opaque colors first. Because I did later, I added like white on top of like a bunch of transparent layers, and I was just like, oh god, what was I thinking? Anyway, it works out because the point for me for encaustic is just I have done some more like representational things with encaustic, but like I just like it because of it's like more of like a color study. And so like when I was doing this one, I was thinking rust because I've actually done 3 rust encaustic paintings already, but I've used reference photos for those. This one I didn't use any reference photos. I just used the colors that I used in those other paintings to make this one. So rust is what I was thinking, but then by the end of it I was like, oh wow, these look like agate slices. So agate, is that how you say that? I never know how to say that, but agate slices. And you'll see at the end where I'm like heating and cooling a certain area, like that it looks like agate. Well, I think it does, and I feel like such a goofball if I'm saying agate wrong. Agate, I don't know. Anyway, so all the textures that you create are basically from heating areas and allowing certain areas to cool at different rates. And like one of the first things that I learned about encaustic was that you don't want to have like bubbles. You want it to be like a fully smooth surface, but you do get bubbles just because that's what happens. So basically what you do to like get rid of your bubbles is to heat the entire surface, not just the area that has bubbles, because if you heat just the area that has bubbles, it'll just get worse. So you have to liquefy the entire area to do so. So that's another little pro tip for you. Some things to know when you're working with the paint on the actual like heating surface. So you have it on there, like you have all your paints on the surface. It like keeps it like easy to access, so you're not constantly having to heat up pigments and stuff. So you have it on there, but you don't want it to be too cool on the surface, and then you don't want it to be too hot, because if it's smoking that's bad and also harmful to your lungs. I do generally wear a respirator even though I have a fan going and the window open, and oh my gosh, it was so hot. I had gloves on, like my hands were sweating, my face was sweating in like the weirdest spot. Anyway, so the heat gun too, like you don't want that to get too hot because it will heat up on its own, and even though it's set to like a low temperature, like it will just be hot because you've been using it a long time. And actually, I had like the pancake griddle plugged in, the fan plugged in, the my computer plugged in, my phone charging, and the heat gun all plugged in at the same time in the same like I think it's called like a power strip or like a surge protector or something, and I tripped the surge or blew the power. I don't know what the saying is. You millennials know better than me. I'm a millennial too. I shouldn't say that, but anyway, so like I had to like unplug some things into different outlets and stuff because it just uses too much power, man. It's just so much power. I'm just kidding. Anyway. So basically there's a learning curve with Encaustic. Like, there's a lot of trial and error, and I've learned a lot about this just by like making bubbles that were like too hard to get, like just that kind of thing. And so I'm kind of hoping that this video is just kind of an expansion of your art horizons, just kind of open your minds to like the possibility of like new art media. So yeah, I don't know. This is not a full tutorial. This is just like a, survey, like an art history survey class, where it's not like one specific, thousands of years. It's like thousands of years. It just touches on different things about Encaustic. This is like the basics. I haven't really done any Encaustic on this channel, so I mostly do like drawing and oil painting. So I could always do more Encaustic. It's just a lot of work to set it up, and it's really expensive to like use that much paint. Like, I use so much paint on this. Anyway, but yeah, so when I was working on this, I started with a layer of medium on the bottom, like right on top of the gesso. And I did mention in the video of my supply list that I did gesso my own birchwood panel, and that's a gesso that's specifically for Encaustic because it can handle higher temperatures. So the gesso, and then on top of that is like just a layer of Encaustic medium, and then pigment on top of that. And so the reason that I've found that I do medium directly on the bottom is just because you use a lot less of the actual pigment when you have it on top of the wax. I don't know how, I don't know why it happens. It just works like that. And then you fuse each layer. So you fuse like your medium to the gesso, and then you put pigment on, then you fuse that layer. So like you're fully heating it at each time, like each layer you fuse it. And then like they work together, and then like as you heat some layers, like some of the layers below it kind of comes up depending on like how hot you make it. It's such a cool process, and it just looks so cool, and it's so fun to play around. And you're not making Encaustic do what you want it to do. Encaustic is doing what it wants, and you just have to go with it and like know how it works, and kind of just like tailor what you're working on or how you're working with it just to whatever it's going to do. So that's another thing too, just learning how how it works and that sort of thing. So yeah. So after all the layers, I did a final layer of medium on top at the very end, and then I let it dry overnight. It's sort of like a varnish, like a nice shiny layer on top of like a bunch of paint, So then today I came in, and then I used my finger to like rub the entire thing, and like just using enough friction to like heat it up just enough with the right amount of squeaky noises to make it shiny. And so that's another pro tip too. Like, I didn't know I could make something like go back in and make it shiny until like a while after I had actually started using it. I hope you enjoyed my Encaustic time-lapse video of my agate/rust painting. It was really fun, and I'm glad to do it. I think I already mentioned that it's a lot of work to like go back and set up for Encaustic because it is so messy, and I have to, anyway. So I make a video every Wednesday and every Saturday, and actually next week is the week of my giveaway, so tune in on Wednesday for that video. You can see all the things that I'm going to be giving to you guys, and then on Saturday is the video where I actually use all this stuff. It's gonna be fun! So I'll see you guys later. Click to subscribe.